back then, the greater, let's say, the greater scope of a company, did people tend to think of software engineers as professionals, or did that take a while for people to start to say, hey, okay, these people are professionals?
That's also an interesting question. It seems to me that in the first jobs I worked at in the very late 60s, um, it was a very professional environment. People came in, they wore ties, they were dressed well. It was very, business dress, not even business casual dress. It was business dress. The offices were nice. There was a large demographic. The programmers were primarily older. They were in their 30s, 40s, 50s. I was obviously the youngest because I was 18, but there wasn't even anybody in the gap between me and say a 30-year-old. It's like there's all of a sudden there were these 18-year-olds and then there's all these adults.
Mhm.
So in those days, it felt to me as an 18-year-old, it felt to me to be a very professional environment, a business-oriented professional environment. That shifted, and it shifted very rapidly in the 70s. In the 70s, it became an environment of 20-year-olds. 20, 22, 25, 27. The vast majority of programmers were male. That was a change, by the way, because the very first job I had, there were a fair number of female programmers. But that shifted, and it shifted hard. It went really hard into 20-year-old males, 22-year-old males, young boys, full of energy, full of testosterone, gonna conquer the world. And it was not a professional environment anymore, at least not a business professional environment. It was more of a fraternity environment.
Mm, okay. I see what you're saying. Do you think looking at companies today, has that has that improved, or has it stayed the same, or has it gotten worse, do you think?
Well, I think it's gotten better. Well, I think it's gotten better in general. I think there is a patina of professionalism, but the fraternity feel really hasn't gone away.
Mm,
It's primarily a male dominated field for whatever reason. And in at least in the United States, at least in the Western world, it is primarily male dominated, primarily young. So people in their 20s and 30s.
mhm.
Once you get into your 40s and 50s, people start to wonder why you're not a manager now. How come you're still a programmer? So there's a definite kind of pejorative or negative feel towards an older programmer. And then you get a little bit older than that, and then, well, you're out of date. Sorry, you don't know Angular anymore. You don't know any of these new things. You can't do all the whipty new acronyms. You're just an old dude, and we'll put you off in the corner, and you can smile.
Do you think that in this age, I will say for me, I work remotely ever since really COVID. And I used to go into our office before COVID, but then after COVID, we quickly pivoted. We're all remote work now. Even to this day, we don't have a mandatory, mandatory thing to come into work. I was wondering, do you think remote work has kind of a, aided in that professionalism, or that it's not the fraternity aspect of it, or that it's not really gotten maybe as good as you think it should?
Oh my, I have a number of mixed feelings about offline work. It's obvious why businesses like it. I mean, if you don't have to buy the building, that's a big expense off the back of your finances. On the other hand, and it's great for the employee because the employee can sit at home and program in their pajamas. Um, on the other hand, boy, do you lose a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the team camaraderie, the ability to look in people's eyes, to actually be with people. That's a huge loss. And I'm not sure how this is all going to settle out. My preference would be to return to the days of the office where people congregated and worked together, and we only allowed homework once a week, a day a week, 2 days a week. You
Mhm.
know, you can work from home, but you got to be in the office at least some of the time, and that's where my preference would lie.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally I feel that too. I feel like when I was in the office and sitting next to people, it did feel different and it felt more of a team atmosphere. And these days, we do the best we can, and I feel like I like the team that I'm on, and we work pretty good, but there are some challenges to it, and I'm curious to see what happens in the next few years. I mean, do you think there'll be a kind of a reversion to the mean, and people will start to push back and get people back in the office?
I think as the economy tightens, the people running the companies are going to ask themselves, what are these people in their homes doing? We better get them here so that we know what they're doing. And we've seen that before. We've seen it happen where during times of really good high economy times, all the rules kind of relax, and then when things get tight, people look around and say, "Okay, we can't afford this nonsense. Bring everybody in, and we're going to deal with tough times."
Mm.
And that I think that's probably what's going to happen.